Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to 9 Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows is a widely read introduction to systems thinking, written to help readers understand why complex problems often behave in surprising ways. Building on Meadows' influential work in environmental science and policy, the book explains how the structure of a system drives its behavior, whether the system is an ecosystem, an organization, an economy, or a personal habit. Rather than focusing on quick fixes, it trains readers to look for feedback loops, delays, stocks, and flows, and the mental models that shape decisions. The tone is practical and explanatory, aiming to make abstract ideas usable for everyday analysis and better choices. For anyone frustrated by recurring problems that resist common solutions, Meadows offers a clear framework for seeing hidden causes and identifying smarter, longer-lasting interventions. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, seeing systems through structure, not events. A central theme of the book is that events are the visible tip of deeper structures. Meadows encourages readers to shift attention from isolated incidents to the architecture that repeatedly produces them. This includes identifying system boundaries, key elements, and especially the relationships among elements. By learning to map how parts interact, readers can explain persistent patterns like boom and bust cycles, chronic project delays, or resource depletion. The book also clarifies why intuitions often fail in complex environments. We tend to attribute outcomes to single causes, while real-world systems are shaped by multiple interacting forces. Meadows introduces a practical vocabulary for analysis, such as stocks that accumulate, flows that change stocks, and the parameters that influence rates. Understanding structure makes it easier to diagnose why well-intended actions backfire and why incremental tweaks can miss the real drivers. The payoff is a more reliable way to understand complexity, make sense of repeating outcomes, and design interventions that match how the system actually works. Secondly, feedback loops and delays that drive behavior. Meadows highlights feedback loops as the engine of system behavior. Reinforcing feedback amplifies change, creating growth or collapse dynamics, while balancing feedback counteracts change, pushing the system toward a goal or equilibrium. The book explains how these loops combine to create real-world patterns, including rapid expansions followed by limits, oscillations, and stalled progress. Equally important are delays, the time gaps between action and result. Delays can cause overcorrection, instability, and policy resistance because decision-makers react to outdated signals. Meadows shows that many management problems come from acting on symptoms rather than on the feedback structure. When a system is dominated by reinforcing loops, small advantages can compound into major outcomes. When balancing loops and delays dominate, pushing harder may produce diminishing returns or oscillations. The practical lesson is to locate the key loops and the timing of information and response. Doing so helps readers anticipate unintended consequences, choose interventions that stabilize rather than destabilize, and set expectations about how long meaningful change should take. Thirdly, leverage points for effective intervention. The book is widely associated with the idea of leverage points, the places within a complex system where a small shift can produce big changes. Meadows distinguishes between shallow interventions, like adjusting numbers or buffers, and deeper ones, like changing information flows, rules, goals, or paradigms. She argues that people often focus on low-leverage actions because they are visible and politically easier, even when they barely affect outcomes. Higher leverage changes can be uncomfortable because they challenge entrenched incentives and beliefs. The leverage framework helps readers prioritize, sometimes improving feedback information can correct behavior without heavy-handed control, while other times the goal of the system must be redefined to stop it from optimizing the wrong outcome. Meadows also points out that leverage points interact. Changing a rule might fail if the surrounding information flow remains distorted. The practical value is a disciplined way to compare possible actions, estimate their likely impact, and avoid wasting effort on fixes that treat symptoms while leaving the underlying structure untouched. Fourthly, system traps and why fixes backfire. Meadows describes recurring system traps that cause well-meaning solutions to fail. These include policy resistance, where multiple actors push the system toward different goals and cancel each other out, and the tragedy of the commons, where individual incentives degrade shared resources. Another common trap is drift to low performance, where standards erode over time because people adapt to worse outcomes. She also explores escalation dynamics, where competition creates a reinforcing cycle of increasing effort and cost, and success to the successful, where early advantages get amplified by resource allocation rules. By naming these traps, the book gives readers a pattern language for recognizing danger early. It also emphasizes that traps are not moral failings but structural outcomes, meaning they can be redesigned. Typical remedies include aligning incentives with long-term health, strengthening feedback that reflects true costs, protecting commons through rules and monitoring, and building resilience through diversity and redundancy. Readers come away better equipped to anticipate counterintuitive effects and design policies that reduce perverse incentives. Lastly, mental models, learning, and living with complexity. Beyond diagrams and concepts, the book emphasizes that systems thinking is a practice of humility and learning. Meadows argues that the most powerful drivers often include paradigms, the shared assumptions that define what people consider normal, possible, or valuable. Because paradigms shape goals and rules, they also shape outcomes, yet they are hard to see from the inside. The book encourages readers to test assumptions, seek diverse perspectives, and treat models as tools rather than truth. It also promotes an experimental mindset, observe behavior over time, track indicators, and refine interventions based on feedback. A key message is that controlling a system is less effective than designing conditions for it to self-organize toward better results. This includes creating transparency, encouraging adaptation, and building resilience for shocks. The book's broader guidance helps readers handle complexity without paralysis, make better decisions under uncertainty, and avoid rigid solutions. By combining technical insight with a philosophy of learning, it supports more thoughtful leadership in communities, organizations, and personal life. In conclusion, this book fits readers who want a practical framework for understanding complex problems, including leaders, managers, policymakers, educators, sustainability professionals, and curious general readers. It benefits daily life by helping you spot patterns behind recurring issues, anticipate unintended consequences, and choose actions that address root causes instead of temporary relief. The concepts also sharpen communication. When teams share a systems view, they can debate assumptions, goals, and feedback rather than arguing over isolated events. Compared with many business or productivity titles that focus on tactics, Thinking in Systems stands out for its durable, cross-domain toolkit. The leverage points lens, the clear explanation of feedback and delays, and the catalog of common traps make it easier to apply systems thinking without needing advanced math or specialized software. If you want a book that stays useful long after reading because it changes how you see problems in the first place, it is a strong purchase among systems thinking classics. If you would like to support Donella H. Meadows, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.